Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That, to be honest, that is like a lawyer's worst nightmare.
So hi guys, this is Ugo Lord, commonly known as the TikTok attorney.
Oh my gosh.
I love lawyers' reaction. I love it so much. You're like a real life attorney.
Yes, real life attorney.
Do you have
practicing.
a particular field?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a business law attorney.
Okay.
So I'm really focused on
law.
Listen.
Okay.
It sounds super boring, but it's actually quite complex in that
Oh, I know.
I get to see different sides, so many different sides of the world. And I love
Yes.
that.
Interesting. So I want to know how you became an attorney, and then I want to hear more about what that really looks like for you. So when did you decide, yes, this is the career for me.
Oh my
This
gosh.
is the move. This is the one I want.
You know, it's interesting, Rebecca,
Okay.
because you are when I look at you and I look at your journey and how you knew, it's one of those things that it's very similar for me. I just knew, you know what I mean? I knew.
Yeah.
I actually, this is going to sound really weird, but I actually thought I was either going to be either one of two things. I was either going to be a lawyer, or I was going to be a teacher. Because I love connections.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I feel like being a lawyer allows me to have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an actor as well. So I was like, okay, what is something that I can do where I can connect with people, where I can be around people, but I can also perform. I can also be on stage. And if you think about it, lawyers are pretty much actors. Let's be honest.
Teachers too.
100%.
Yes.
You're
To
absolutely
the two
right.
occupations.
Yes.
So fun fact, before I knew I wanted to be a teacher since 5th grade.
Oh my God.
In college, I dabbled with the idea of pre-law, and so I was
way.
also and looking
This
into
is
the
why we are
LSAT.
so insane.
I love it
this is
so
the
much.
reason why. This
It
right
really
here.
was. We were meant to be friends.
100%.
I love it. But we chose the different path.
Yes,
That's
yes.
okay.
But now we are both sides of the spectrum.
Yes.
And now we're coming together.
I love it, and sharing all the experience.
Yes, exactly.
So I know, but I know most other people don't. So what is the process of applying to law school, going into law school?
Oh my gosh.
Did you have to? Again, did you have to major in anything specific in college?
Well, great question. I know you know the answer, but fantastic question. You're so funny. So you're absolutely right. So after I graduated actually, it's interesting because my journey, it was not the typical journey.
Really?
Oh, okay, get this. So my parents were very focused on listen, you can do whatever you want, but you need to go get an education first. Do whatever you want.
I love
But
it.
get an education first. So I was like, okay, let me get this education as quickly as I possibly can.
Okay.
So I literally spent majority of my youth in the library. I was just studying constantly. So I graduated from high school, and then 2 years later, I graduated with 3 degrees,
Okay.
2 associates and a bachelor's degree. Did that all in 2 years because I was just like, okay, I just need to be done. I just need to be done. I just need to be done. And then after I got my bachelor's degree, that is when I decided to go to law school. And interesting, because when in my undergrad, again, I don't like conforming to the norm. My major was French.
Avery's was music.
No way.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
That's so you don't need a pre-law or political science or anything like that.
No. And that's why I tell people, do what you love. Please, guys, do what you love.
And
focus on what you love.
Yes. And it's so interesting. And people actually, when he was applying to law school, he was actually told some schools prefer if you have more well-rounded majors and minors and things like that.
Yes, because this whole concept of political science or pre-law, it gets, and no qualms to anyone who does
Right,
it,
exactly. If that's what you love,
Do it.
then just do it.
100%.
You just don't have to. It's a little bit different than
Exactly.
med school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're absolutely
I
right.
love that. I've always loved the social sciences over the sciencey sciences because this is more freedom to do whatever you want.
But can I just say that social studies was my favorite?
As it should be.
It
As
was.
it should be. I don't trust
Swear.
people who don't like social studies. What do you mean? You don't like history? You're living it. What do you mean?
Exactly.
Don't understand.
Exactly.
Can't
You are living
relate.
it.
I used to always teach social studies as girl drama.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
If you teach World War I from the perspective of girl drama, it's France didn't want any, like, the Slavic, like, they just wanted to be, like, have a little posse. Like, they just wanted to have the connection, the community. Like, they just wanted friends. And, like,
that is so smart. I love that.
It is girl drama. And they're like, no, Miss Rogers, no, they didn't. And I'm like, and then they assassinated him for no reason. like
Oh, God.
what? So, like it's a girl drama movie. It's like Mean Girls.
I literally never thought about that until right now, and I'm all for it. I'm now going to start living my entire life thinking of it in that lens.
Like, if you think about most wars, not all, but most wars is like girl drama.
That
like,
makes sense.
when people are like, there's already this little thing of like, oh, most wars are fought over religion, women, whatever. And I'm like, so girl drama.
Right.
Like, you're mad about what? Okay. Like, she doesn't worship the same God as me. Like, okay, Susan, that's fine. Like, it's all girl drama. That's how you gotta teach it.
So well
So when
said.
people are
Oh my
like, I don't like social studies, I'm like, that's a lie. Everyone loves gossip. Such a liar. I don't.
Let's be honest. The world is a little. It's just better with a little gossip in it. You know, it makes it a little more interesting.
Yes.
I have to be honest with
Do you watch Bridgerton?
Do I watch Bridgerton?
Yes!
And I know
Okay.
what scene you're talking about. I know what scene you're talking about.
It's a little boring because I love my gossip.
It's like, come on,
We
Queen.
love Queen Charlotte.
Oh
She
my
played the
gosh.
game so well.
Oh my
What a
gosh.
queen.
Did you watch the like the prequel, like
Of
her story?
course.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yes.
George, just George.
Yes.
Farmer George. Oh my God.
How beautiful is
Literally.
that?
Have you read the books?
No, I didn't even
haven't.
know it was a book until recently.
I haven't read the books. But part of me, if I read the books, I feel like the show will be ruined for me.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, again, as an educator,
Yes.
I'm sure you're all for reading
Yes.
books. That's fantastic.
Yes, I love reading books.
Of course, absolutely. I just feel like from this particular series, the surprises is not.
Yes.
You know
yes.
what I mean?
And even like, I feel like whenever I watch a series, it never measures up to the books.
Yeah, exactly.
Never. And
That
so
is true.
I don't
Why
want,
ruin it?
don't want to be ruined. I love Bridgerton.
Makes
but
perfect sense.
I'm rambling because I have ADHD.
No.
So, for those that don't know, after you graduate with whatever kind of major that you want,
Yes.
what's the process of like getting into law school? Like, you obviously have to take the LSAT.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm answering
Very
it
good
for
question.
you.
No, so you're absolutely right. I'm actually in the process of starting a foundation that focuses on prepping people and getting people ready to go to law school.
Love that. I
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh, thank you so much. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. So you take the LSAT, which basically is like the SATs for those who want to go
Yes.
and become a lawyer. And the great thing about it is that it's one of those exams that it's not based on like math and science and
Right.
all of that stuff.
Like logic games.
Exactly. So imagine like a test that you take where you are playing games.
Yes.
Like playing games is the test.
So like to get like a good example,
Yes.
because I remember Avery
Yes.
hated prepping for the LSAT
Yes.
because he's like, no, all these answers are correct, and I'm like, but you have to pick the answer that's more correct. And he goes, but they're all correct, and I'm like, no. And it's like for those who love puzzles.
Yes.
This is for you.
100%.
Like,
100%.
I can't even. I used to be able to recall some of the specific questions that Avery was like, I hate this. He's like, they're all correct, and I'm like, no. Like, that's the LSAT.
Yes.
And so, like, depending on what score you get on the LSAT, different schools become more of an option for you.
Exactly.
Where did you go?
So I went to Loyola. in
Okay.
New Orleans. And
Okay. New Orleans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you're familiar with like the South and all of that.
My mom's from New Orleans.
No way.
Yeah, well, Hola, but like it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
right
Your mom. I met her mom today. She is adorable. You've never
love
met her. She's
Michelle.
amazing. Just throwing it out there. She's fantastic.
wonderful.
She really is. She really is. Right there. I didn't know that she was crazy. And I
When
know
we
exactly
go down there, like when we visit, her twang comes out. Oh my God. Sometimes I'll hear it and I'm like,
You know, it's like once you get back to familiar environment, it's like, yes.
It just lets loose.
100%.
And then when she gets it, I get it. And I'm like, this is weird. I should not sound like this. But yeah, so you went to school in New Orleans.
Yes. So I went to Loyola Law in New Orleans, and I loved every second of it. But I didn't get the whole New Orleans experience because I was so focused on
law school's hard.
You know, with Avery and everything. I mean, it's
I don't know if this is the same at every law school, but they actually had a rule. Like, they would kick you out of school if you broke this. About you cannot have a job.
Correct.
While you're in law school.
Yes, it's mandated by the ABA.
Yes. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was because I wasn't. It wasn't actually me. I just heard about it. They were complaining about it. It was like, that can be so stressful for so many people who are on financial aid or who are a little less fortunate and need those part-time jobs. They're legally, or I guess it's legally, I don't know, not allowed to have a job during law school. Yeah. And it's so interesting because, like, when Avery was in law school, so many people, because Avery was also on financial aid for law school. You know, his mom was a nurse, his dad was a teacher. Law school is expensive.
Oh my gosh.
So many people used to like kind of scoff about law school. So pretentious, so posh, blah, blah, blah. And like Avery knew personally so many people who were struggling about bills and how am I going to pay this, and the loan, the bank, like everything's late, and I need, it can be really stressful. Like, these law students are really struggling.
Yeah, especially when it comes to financial aid, because financial aid, for the most part, at least back in my day, back in 1943, financial aid didn't kick in until school started, right? So if you are a college student that you are now have to go and get an apartment, or you have to now move to another city and you have to get set up, they want, obviously rent, they want security, but it is a financial burden.
Yes.
Just to begin going to
law school.
Exactly.
And it's not like there's like dorms or anything like that. There's no dorms for law school.
Exactly. Like, rarely. Like, my school actually did have dorms, but it was very specific. It was for like certain students that had like certain families, and most students did not qualify. But most law schools don't have like a dorm to live in. You're absolutely right. So it's for that reason. It's like, just imagine that. You know what I mean? I never thought about it like that. You're right.
It can be really hard for a lot of people just to get through law school, just with the sheer amount of bills and things like that.
Yes.
And then after, and then the whole reason that they're not supposed to have, for those that don't know, is because like law school is no joke.
Yes.
It's so hard and it's so difficult, and they're not supposed to have like. They're trying to limit the amount of extracurriculars that these students have to really be able to throw themselves into the law and to throw themselves into school and to not get distracted.
You're absolutely
like, there are a lot of people who go into law school under the opinion of, should I be in a relationship, because they like scare people so hard about that stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Here's the way that I always like to look at it. When you are going into an unknown environment, an unknown circumstance, and you know that you're going to be in a pressure cooker while you are in that circumstance, the idea is to try to do everything you can in your external life to make sure that you have the least amount of stress on you, so you can focus entirely on this one thing. And I think that was the motivation why the ABA, which stands for the American Bar Association, decided to make this rule. And you can apply for exemptions in like your second and third year, I think. But your first year, the reason why it's just such a big no-no is because your first year is always the hardest. Like, that 1L year.
They weed people out.
Oh my gosh, you know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, 1L year is intentionally such experience, because they want to weed out people who will not make it in the profession.
You're absolutely right. 100%.
For people that really just don't understand, and Ugo and I were just talking about this earlier, like, the legal world is such a stressful and cutthroat place that statistically lawyers are the most likely to develop some kind of addiction issue. And it's so sad. And like, they tell the students this 1L year, first day, just letting you know, statistically, most of you will develop an addiction. Most of you will, because it's the pressure, it's the whining and dining, it's the everything. Like, it's so cutthroat, it's the stress. Like, it's a real problem. And it's so interesting. There's so many stereotypes about lawyers being, demons.
Yeah.
Evil and like sinister, blah, 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 blah. But like in reality, they're a profession that statistically will struggle the most.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, great. Some get a really nice paycheck. Yeah. But there's also so many attorneys that go into like public defending.
Yes.
And working for the state.
Yes.
Like, you know, there's so many people, and those are not pretty paychecks. And
Correct.
that actually accounts for most of the legal world.
Yes.
Does not work for those big businesses with the big checks. And it's just really interesting. Like, we always talk about stereotypes coming from like the smallest percent of the profession. And it's so like on top of so many people think all lawyers are these filthy rich, blah, 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 when most are not.
Yes,
on top of it, statistically, they will also develop this very real problem, this very real disease that, you know, they might not even have the resources to take care of.
Yes,
or to
you
help
are absolutely right. You're 100% correct. It's interesting because when I was younger, I interned once for an attorney. She was a solo practitioner, and she did public defense work, right? So this is, you know, that cases that are coming from the court, assigned from the court. These are individuals that have very high workloads, that are getting paid very little money, and their jobs have a very high impact. It is like one of the most challenging combinations. Right? When you have a huge caseload, you're not being paid a lot for that big caseload, and your work that you're doing is going to change someone's life for better or for worse.
Yes.
If you are prepared and you do well, you can reunite a person with their family. But if you're not on top of your game and something slips, they're going to jail.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's so stressful. And it's one of those
that
things.
Is why they turn to like these coping mechanisms, and for far too many, that coping mechanism is like an addicting forming habit, such as alcohol, for example.
I'll never forget, like, when Avery went into law school, first he knew about the concerns about statistics and with addiction, but he didn't really get it until he interned one summer in family court.
There you go.
And he would just come home every day feeling like I'll never forget, he was almost in tears, and he's like, I just witnessed the most brutal custody dispute.
Oh my God.
But these poor kids are in the middle of it. He goes, and just listening to them, the parents really just needed to sit down and talk themselves.
Oh my God.
He goes like, things could have just been fixed if they had a conversation. And I'm like, but you can't.
Right, exactly.
And he was clerking with the judge, so he wasn't even with the attorneys.
Yes.
And he's like watching what's going on with these kids, or like another situation where in family law, kids were orphaned in a car accident, and then other families arguing about who's going to take them. And like these kids are just sitting here grieving while everyone's arguing about who do you want to live with. And they want to live with their parents. Like, you know? And he's like, I get it now. Like, he's like, and that was the day he decided, like, no family law. Right. That he just could not handle it.
Like, in your household, like, in your family, how do you, like, cope with these, like, very high stressful moments? Like, what is your key takeaway to help like condition yourself to not, you know, take on all of that pain and bring it into the house? Like, what do you do?
It's so funny you ask that, because like with teaching, you know, you also get a lot of life or death situations that many people don't realize. Right. And, like, I never was able to not let it consume me. Like, I've said this before, there were some, oh my God, I can feel it, like, already choking up a little bit. There were some students that even to this day, like, I'll just think of, like, are they okay? And like obviously like now, you know, I creep on them on social media a little bit, just to check on them every now and then.
Just for their own
even now,
well-being.
like, you know, they're all in college now, but like I just want to make sure you're fine. But like at the time, you know, with some of their situations, like I had kids who step parents were like threatening them. And I just remember being up at night just like unable to sleep because I'm like, does this kid have a bed tonight?
Wow.
Is this kid safe tonight?
Wow.
And so, like, I never really learned how to not take that home. Wow. Avery was always a little bit better at compartmentalizing than I was. And he played, like, he would de-stress with, like, video games and things like that. Like that. And everyone has a different,
of course,
some people like to read, some people like to run. Those people I don't trust. People who run freely? What do you mean? That's a choice? That's crazy.
To reduce stress?
What? No. I think about running and all of a sudden my blood pressure's up. Like, no. But, you know, it's when you actually get into these professions and you see what some of these people deal with, like, you understand, okay, like this, okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. And, like,
go ahead.
No, sorry, no, keep it.
Well, I was even going to say, even some of the most ridiculous things, like, that make, it's not even just the hard things, you know, like one lawyer sent me a story, and he's like, this is why lawyers drink.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. I'm ready for this. Like, okay, tell me, why do lawyers drink? What happened? Oh, gosh. I'm nervous for this story.
He had I don't know exactly what the crime was, but he had a client who was accused of some crime, some felony. And the only thing that tied his client to the scene was a pair of sunglasses.
Sunglasses?
Yes. That was the only thing that was left at the scene. That was the only evidence that was produced.
Wow.
And it was the defense's job to tie the sunglasses to his client.
Oh my God.
And they couldn't. So they found the client not guilty. It was all great. Dismissed of all charges, blah, blah, blah. Not guilty. Great. Awesome.
Right.
Afterwards, because this was like a felony, there was obviously press outside. And so the attorney went to the client, I'll be gone for 10 minutes. I'm going to address the press. And then we'll go ahead and get out of here. Stay right here. Okay. Do not move. Don't talk to anybody.
Right.
So the attorney left to go talk to the press, and in those 10 minutes, the client stood up, walked over to the judge, and said, hey, now that this is over, who can I talk to about getting my sunglasses back?
Shut up. You are kidding. That would drive me to drink as well.
And the judge declared a mistrial.
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness.
And told the lawyer, next time, maybe don't leave your client alone.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No.
That's cool. Oh, that to be honest, that is like a lawyer's worst nightmare. Like a lawyer's worst night. To be honest with you, like any time a client is speaking to anyone, I'm nervous. If they are talking to anyone except me, I am because you never know what they're going to say. I'm always nervous. Like, even though I'm in the civil aspect of it, you know, as opposed to the criminal aspect, I'm still like super nervous. But it's interesting, my dear, because before going into, you know, business law attorney, but before going into business law, I was a part of a program called Trial by Peers. And that is a program where I represented juvenile offenders. So these are, you know, just like you're dealing with high school students as an educator.
Right.
I was with these high school students, but who had been accused of committing like misdemeanors. And it's quite interesting because these are, you know, I was on the defense side of it. So I was representing these teenagers. And the most challenging thing that I always had while our trials were, because most of my cases went to trial. Pretty much majority of them went to trial, but I never lost a case. But you're too kind. But the most difficult and challenging thing to control was what happens at school.
Oh, these kids, they tell all their business at school.
Are you kidding? It's like, oh, no, stop talking. Please, oh my gosh, please stop.
Stop telling your friends it's not a brag.
Oh my God.
Stop telling your teachers. I always I say all the time, if something crazy is going on in your household, all the teachers know. All the teachers know. Those kids spill all your business.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
All the time.
Always spilling the tea. It's
always.
Like, listen, keep it close to the vest. I can only imagine like the type of stories that your students have told you over the years. Like I can only imagine.
Someone else sent me a story.
Oh my gosh, please tell me.
About how there were some people vandalizing homes.
Oh my goodness.
It was like a whole like team heist trying to break in and whatever. They were using sledgehammers. Oh my gosh. And when the police pursued them, only one of the group was caught. And that was this lawyer's client.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And so literally in the middle of the trial, the lawyer said, only answer whatever questions asked.
Yes.
Don't speak.
Yes.
Only as simple as possible.
Yes.
Blah, blah,
No,
blah, blah.
I don't know. Let me confer with my attorney.
So the police officer who arrested him was on the stand.
Okay, yes.
And let me look at this thing so I don't say it incorrectly.
Oh, of course.
Okay. The police officer spoke on the stand and said, oh, the defendant was the only one who was caught, but there were 2 other men who we were not able to apprehend. And the client stood up and said, liar! And the lawyer looked at him and was like, sit down. And the judge was like, hey, you got to control your client. And the guy goes, no, he's lying. He's not a credible witness because there was 4 of us.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, God. Oh, God. The lawyer's just melting. Just melting away. Just melting. Why?
Literally, the attorney was like, why did you just say that?
Oh, my God.
He goes, because I'm discrediting the police officer. And he goes, but you just admitted that you were in the group. My guy, he goes, oh. Like,
oh, my God.
Everyone listen to your attorneys. Listen to your attorneys.
Please
do.
I can just only imagine what it was like for his attorney sitting next to him, knowing my whole case is now tanked. My case is over. My case. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Can we just go to sentencing, Your Honor? Let's just talk about sentencing.
Let's just skip all this. We're wasting everyone's time at this point.
Let's not waste any more time.
Why? Have you ever had a situation where, you either were dealing with a client or another attorney or something where you're like, I know I get paid, but I don't get paid enough for this.
Oh, my gosh. So, funny that you should ask. I had a client once who was all about principle, right? He was like, listen, and there was an injustice that happened to my client. They were involved in this deal where they were, in the process of purchasing property for a nonprofit, and the deal went sour, right? It went very, very sour. And it's so interesting because during that time, we were doing a lot of negotiations with the other side to try and see if we can come to an amicable settlement. Right. And we spent, I kid you not, Rebecca, I want to say a whole day. I want to say probably from 8:30 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. negotiating, trying to get this case resolved. We got to a deal. Shook hands. The mediator was like, yes. We go out to go to the parking lot. And who do we see in the lobby? The other side, which you never want to do, right? Because you never want to bring them together. Right. This was there were a lot of emotions. The deal that we spent all day piecing together unraveled before my very eyes in a 45-second argument, less than a minute. A whole day's work was completely unraveled because they couldn't shut up. They couldn't stop talking. They couldn't.
I feel like people don't understand, when clients act like that, attorneys get embarrassed. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, because
when your client acts like that.
Absolutely. You're trying to do the best that you can
it's
for
a
your
representation. They're a representation of you, and when they act crazy like that, has a professional impact. And I even think client or lawyers who get bad reps because of their clients are also lawyers who represent serial killers or rapists. I think something that people don't understand is that there's no one in the world, not a single attorney that's more serial killers on the road.
Bring them my way.
For sure. I think that's why lawyers get these bad reps for being evil, conniving, and blah blah, because they're letting all these criminals on.
Yes. Oh my God.
I think even in TV shows, you see them as the bad guys.
Yes.
And I think that a more accurate representation is that there are people who genuinely, make sure that one was on, genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that these people are innocent. Yeah. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword because you don't want someone who is actually guilty and evil out on the streets. But there are so many times where you see someone is convicted of murder.
Right.
And then 10, 20 years later, they're like, oh, Awkward. We got the wrong guy. I'm so sorry.
Right, exactly.
You have our apologies. Like, as if that does
sincerely
anything.
For losing 10 years of your life.
Right, exactly.
We
And having
apologize.
everyone turn their back
But
on
have a
you.
good life.
Yes,
You
exactly.
can leave jail now.
Yes,
No.
congratulations. You're innocent.
Good luck.
Like, I think that, like, the most accurate representation of those kinds of attorneys that I've ever seen was on Bones. Have you ever seen the show?
I haven't seen the show, but I've heard so much
I love
about it.
I just started rewatching it.
Oh my God.
There is an episode where there was this guy on death row,
Yes, death row.
and he was just about to have his execution scheduled. And he made a last-ditch effort. He found a new, bright, bushy-eyed attorney, or bushy-tailed, whatever the phrase is. I'm saying it wrong. Found a new, young, happy-go-lucky attorney that, like, really believed in, like, innocence projects and things like that, and asked for her help for, like, one last-ditch effort before he got the needle.
Wow.
And literally, what ended up happening was he knew if he sprinkled a little bit of evidence or a little bit of information, it would lead her in the investigation to more bodies.
Oh my God.
And he can't be executed
gosh.
if there's an ongoing trial. So
Holy
his
crap.
whole goal, and during the entire thing, she was like so excited and so proud because she's doing good. And the moment she realized, she looked so defeated. And I think that's the most accurate portrayal of defense attorneys.
Yes.
Because again, no one wants serial killers on the street.
Right, exactly.
No one, but there are people, like, I feel like that would be me. I always assume the best in people.
Right, of course.
People genuinely believing that you're helping innocent people claim their lives back.
Yes,
like, that's what they're
exactly.
trying to do. And that's what they
Exactly.
wholeheartedly believe. And these
Yes.
criminals are just manipulating them.
Yeah,
Like,
oh my
no one wants to help people like that get away with it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like, yeah, no one, yeah, exactly. No one literally is thinking to themselves, if there's anything that I can do to get more rapists and murderers out into the street, let me do that. Like, you're right.
right.
It's not the motivation, but as you mentioned, everyone is, number one, constitutionally, of course, you know, obligated and permitted under the Constitution to have representation of counsel. But yes, there is also a big motivation amongst defense attorneys to make sure that people are being treated fairly, right?
Yes.
To try and make sure that, okay, this person that's being accused of a crime, like, there is evidence that this person is in fact innocent. And even for people, I've even heard from defense attorneys, from people who are not innocent, where defense attorneys have told me that their motivation is to make sure that they're not treated unfairly, because oftentimes underrepresented communities of color, underserved communities, communities that are not financially strong, they often get sentenced much harsher and much stronger, yes, than the opposite, right? Than the majority or affluent communities. You know, you had the whole concept of, you know, cocaine possession versus crack possession. You know, cocaine possession, you know, might give you a slap on the wrist with a misdemeanor and, you know, pay a fine. Whereas crack possession, which, by the way, they're the same chemical compounds, right? Whereas crack possession would get you locked away for several years.
wow.
And cocaine, obviously, is more, I mean, hopefully most people don't know this, but cocaine...
Hopefully we don't have a lot of drug addicts.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully you're not on drugs.
Exactly. But it's true that cocaine is more expensive than crack, right? So those who could afford the more expensive drug get the slap on the wrist, versus those who cannot afford that expensive drug, who are buying and are addicted to the cheaper, more accessible drugs, are the ones that are being sent to prison for a long time. And so oftentimes I hear from these defense attorneys that even if their goal is not to, like, get them to walk out on the street, but the goal is to get them to be treated fairly, so that way they will now have the same type of sentence that an affluent person would be able to have.
Great, that's interesting. That's
crazy.
I never thought about it that way. Like, I think that's a really important perspective. A really important perspective.
You know,
to have.
Rebecca, something that we talked about, like, offline, off camera, and something that you do that I truly admire is that you're always trying to get other people to see and understand different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I really respect that about
Thank
you.
you.
Because you're absolutely right. So many people do look at us as lawyers and, oh, nah, the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
They're the scum
Oh,
of the
you
earth.
vile creature.
Right. But the fact that you are out here providing a different perspective perspective on our profession is very admirable.
Thank you.
So I truly appreciate
Of course. Well, going through my journey, and we talked a little bit about this before, of like, there's so many underappreciated jobs that people just don't understand.
Yes.
And like you go and you tell someone teachers aren't paid enough, teachers are overworked, and like they're like, oh, teachers. Hate those guys. But like if you make them like ha a little bit along the way, they're usually a little bit more willing to listen. I was telling Ugo that's kind of how like every skit that I ever post is a real situation.
I had no idea that, ladies and gentlemen. Like that blew my mind.
Every single one is a real, either something that was on the news or something that I saw people complaining about in a Facebook group or stories that people have sent me and asked me to make stories about, like very real things. And then I realized that I could do that for other underappreciated occupations like janitors, nurses, hotel desk workers. And then like even seeing Avery struggle in the legal world, I realized that just because some professions like lawyers, doctors, Dan over at Disney HQ. Like, you make a lot of money, but there are still so many people dehumanizing those professions for whatever reason. And that,
you're absolutely
everyone, it kind of made me realize and understand that, like, everyone should be humanized a little bit.
And you are doing that.
Thank you.
You are humanizing. What a beautiful thing to do. Honestly, like sincerely, what a beautiful thing to do. Because that is what leads to more understanding. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what leads to more kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. As it should. And I think that's another thing that lawyers kind of struggle with is, sometimes like when it's your job to do X, Y, Z, that doesn't always align with your own personal morals. And I know some people think it's very easy to just be like, okay, well then just do something else. Well, it's not always that easy. Like someone sent me a story about how there's this man whose job was to defend this bus transportation system. Like he was the legal team for this transportation thing. That's his career. That's where he's worked for 10 years. Right? And he's supposed to defend them and represent them in any issue that they may face.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, there was an incident where on this bus ride, there was a mother who was breastfeeding her infant.
On the bus?
On the bus.
Oh.
And so on this bus, there was a very weak man.
A weak man.
A very weak man.
A weak man.
Who was very offended that she was breastfeeding.
You got to be.
Yeah.
What is wrong with people?
Weakness.
Weakness is the problem. You are right. You are absolutely right.
And had an absolute fit that this mother was breastfeeding.
Wow.
And then started yelling at the driver about it. And the driver didn't want to deal with it. So the driver pulled over and asked the mother to leave.
Oh no.
Which you can't do. You can't do that.
That's a huge legal no.
So
oh my God.
The bus transportation place was being sued.
Of course.
The lawyer was like,
and he had to represent. Oh my gosh.
And he did not agree with that at all.
Right.
Like, that's his job.
Right.
And so he is like, God, okay.
Oh my God.
Okay. So the day, I think it might have even been the day of the trial. Right. He literally walks outside to go represent them.
Yes.
And there's like, 50 breastfeeding moms.
Shut up.
It's all standing, protesting, breastfeeding. And he's like,
there.
Women, I'm with you, man. Like, I'm sorry. This is my job. Like, and I think that's another, issue, because someone could very easily be like, oh, we'll go work somewhere else. This is a career that has been set up. Like, it's not that easy.
Exactly.
It's like with teaching. Like, do I agree with everything? No. But we'll go, what do you mean get another career? This is the job that I set for. Like, everyone has things in their job that they don't agree with.
And it's interesting, Rebecca, because right now we see legally, especially when it comes to teachers across the country, that are being required to teach certain things and being restricted from teaching certain things.
Yes.
Being prevented from teaching certain parts of our actual history. And I imagine for the teachers, it's like, hey, this is my job. What do you do? Like, what do you do in those situations?
I actually just told V about this earlier. So my last year of teaching, they changed the standards for world history, right?
Yes.
Well, I even told you one earlier about how, oh, maybe I told her, oh, I told you before the cameras rolled. Like, the standards were like, oh, Middle Ages, all European history. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But even, like, my last year of teaching, they changed world history completely. And it now started at 1200. And they're like, we're going to teach it thematically. And we're starting with 1200. And I just was like, nah. Nah. I think ancient civilization's important. Like, what, we're just going to skip over Rome and Greece?
How is that
Egypt
even...
in...
Oh my God.
No.
Like, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Me and my friend...
Are you kidding?
My best friend at school, we just kind of looked at each other, we're like...
Absolutely not. First of all, the relationship between, especially the relationship between the Roman Empire and the Egyptians at that time, and how that came to be, especially with Caesar and Cleopatra. Cleopatra is such an important part of what we see today in terms of like nation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Internation relationships.
Like even Indus River Valley, in first indoor plumbing system ever recorded.
Oh my God.
Literally the grid system, like the way that they did their city planning.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes.
Like no idea how they were able to do that like way back in the day. Like there are so many things that we learn from these ancient civilizations.
Exactly.
Like Hammurabi's Code of Law. Very first legal system ever recorded on the stone. Like an eye for an eye. For those that don't know, like an eye for an eye comes from Mesopotamia in Sumer in like the Hammurabi's Code. Yeah, that was Hammurabi's Code. That was one of the ones.
Oh, I did not know that.
An eye for an eye.
Are you serious?
Is literally the code of law from ancient Civ.
Well, hot darn.
And from King Hammurabi. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Or
oh
like,
my goodness. That's crazy.
Like it was like super and like literally going over legal codes with the kids, showing them like how far things have come.
Yes.
Like it's so important.
It's vital. It's vital. So it has to be frustrating. I love that you were like,
no.
Appreciate.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Not my class anyway.
No, not this one. Like
they will
even,
learn history.
Like the Neolithic Revolution, like the whole idea that we are settled in communities and not nomadic anymore. Like I used to have the kids do this one. I love to teach in like games and simulations.
I love that.
And so I had the kids individually have a set of tasks that were supposed to mimic like fetching water and building shelter and like things like that.
Yes.
And so literally I had like a bucket of water and I gave them like plastic spoons and they had to like go individually and like they only had so much time to do each task.
Goodness.
To like represent, the seasons, because like at the end of the day, if your shelter's not built by winter, like you're out of luck. Like if you don't have enough water on these hot days, you are out of luck.
Very, very true. Very true.
So like and they couldn't do it. They couldn't figure it out. And then I put them into teams and I gave them some different tools that they would only have. Like, you can't plant food and grow food if you're nomadic.
Right.
You're leaving it.
Exactly.
You have to stay put.
Exactly.
And so like explaining this makes life easier.
Exactly.
But you have to stay put, and that is how civilizations were created. And also giving a team of kids to do it, where they're in a community, each having different jobs, each having, like...
Very true.
How are you not going to teach kids these skills and, like, these lessons and, like, explaining why it's important that we live in communities? Like, that's the whole basis of why we have countries today.
Exactly.
And you're just going to cut it?
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. Yeah. That would be so frustrating for you. You must have been like, when you got that memo, you must have been like,
no.
What is going on here?
And it's like, oh, well, it's thematic. So when we talk about revolutions, you can add it. And I'm like, why would I talk about that after already, like,
right, exactly.
I hate that. I, like, especially kids with ADHD and neurological disorders, like me, like, teaching it thematically doesn't make, like, how, if I can't understand it, these kids are going to struggle. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, like, they're doing fine now. But, like, think of how much more fine they'd be if you just did it in chronological order.
Exactly.
Like, no. You're like, well, that's how they do it in AP. Yeah, in AP. What? Oh, I hate, like, anyways, we're rambling about teacher things.
No, but you're absolutely right. You're 100% correct. And that's why, there is this struggle between what you have to do as your profession, and whenever that butts heads with the higher, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's like there's no winning, because on one hand, you're going to have people that are like, oh, you're doing the unmoral thing, you're blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, well, what about these people? Do they not get represented?
Yes,
and like you have two sides of the communities that are butting heads and making the lawyers out to be the bad guy.
Right.
And again, are there some lawyers who are in it for the wrong reasons?
Yeah.
For sure. We talk about that every single episode. There are always going to be people in different professions who make it more difficult for. Like, have you ever run into any lawyers who you're like, oh.
Yes.
Yeah. How, like, what kind of, like, what have you, tell me about that experience.
It's interesting because it's a small community, you know what I mean? And I'm licensed in California, so I'm in Los Angeles, and it's a small community.
Yes.
And word travels extraordinarily quick.
Oh, yes. As it should. As it does. As it does.
And if you don't treat your colleagues well, everybody will hear about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so, yes, there was a time and instance where someone who I knew had a reputation, I'd never worked with them, but they had a reputation. I was now realizing that I was going to have to work with this individual. And so I said, right off the bat, I want the first thing for me to do is to like just break the ice and like, let's like, hey, I'm looking forward to working with you. We're going to resolve this issue with our clients. Everything's going to be fine. Because most of the time, attorneys, we're on opposite sides, but most of the time, the goal is really for us to work together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To try to get our clients, the best deal for our clients, but also get it resolved. Because it's much cheaper if our clients can resolve issues than going to court.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're going to court, you're spending tons of money, right? So, right off the bat, instantly, the other attorney was extraordinarily rude.
Oh, ew.
Aggressive, and extremely unprofessional.
Ew.
And I found myself, when I was in that situation, the best thing that I could do is remove myself from that situation.
Yes.
Because I didn't want to match their freak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't want to get to that level.
No.
Because I still care about integrity. Integrity has to be important in any profession. Your reputation is everything. And if someone's going to lead me to a point where I won't recognize myself, then I remove myself from that situation.
Yes, I love that.
You know what I mean?
Love that. I love that so much.
Oh my gosh, you're so much.
I have so many other questions that I want to, like, my ADHD is going like 100 miles a minute.
I love that.
There's so many things that you just said that like make me think of random little things, if that makes sense.
I love it makes perfect sense.
I don't mean to like completely 180 this at all.
No,
it's just ADHD.
No, not at all. Go ahead. Please.
Tell me about the people, I can't remember what they call themselves, the citizens that think they don't have to follow the law.
Sovereign,
yeah. Can you tell me more about this? Because I was thinking, for some reason, I was just thinking about like, I don't know.
No, I completely understand. Yeah, sovereign citizens, isn't that something? So it's interesting. So yes, there are a group of individuals that believe that the law does not apply to them.
Yeah.
Right? That they are a group of individuals. I mean, and I'm not a part of the organization, obviously, so I can't.
What?
So I likely could not articulate it a way that would make them happy, but from the outside looking in, it just appears like a group of people that believe that they don't abide by the rules of the federal government, and therefore they are not subject to those laws. Therefore, they could break them with zero consequence because they are a sovereign citizen.
What does that mean? Like, what do you mean because they don't follow the rules, therefore they don't have to adhere to the rules?
They don't pledge allegiance to the government system that makes the rules. Therefore, it's like saying, okay, France, love your rules, France, but I'm American. So you, France, do whatever y'all want to do, but that doesn't apply to me because I'm on my own little island on my own.
Yeah, so it's, okay, that makes more sense. I like that analogy. So it's like going to another country and being like, I don't have to follow your rules.
Exactly.
I'm not a part of this.
Exactly.
And none of that works, right?
No. Well, they're interestingly enough, actually, I'm so glad we're talking about this. Interestingly enough, there are actually some circumstances where individuals in the United States actually do not have to follow federal law. And that's when we're talking about like
Amish people.
Yes.
I love Amish people.
Right?
I love
also,
them.
We see it also with Native Americans
yes.
as well.
But that's
tribal
yes. Okay, yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I love. Oh,
so
my gosh.
There are circumstances where certain areas, certain lands are actually exempt.
Yes, but that's like a group of...
Right.
Yes. So sovereign citizens genuinely see themselves as like another subgroup.
Right. From what I understand, again, outside looking in, but from what I understand, yes, they see themselves as a completely different subject. And they have their own laws, by the way. They have their own rules. They're like their own, like, governments, right?
So it's like a cult.
And, you know, it's interesting because there was a famous lawsuit, actually, where courts actually began to recognize, true story, began to recognize some of their gripes, right? Some of their saying that this is what we believe, right? And courts have said, okay, yes, we have a system in place where if you do hold certain beliefs, then you are afforded certain protections because of the beliefs that you have, right? When we look at religions, for example, like you can go and start a new religion. You can start the Rebecca religion tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And you can actually receive protection. It's actually federal protection. That's the most ironic thing about this. You can receive federal protection for that which you believe, but there, of course, are limitations to that, right? Receiving protection from the federal government means the federal government is allowing you to do this versus what sovereign citizens really believe is that it doesn't matter what the federal government wants or doesn't want. This is what we're going to do regardless because we're not subject to your laws.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't it fascinating?
Have you had any experience with sovereign citizens?
Oh my gosh, I have not. But there's an interesting case that I did for Lawyer's Reaction.
Okay.
Where they were talking about, you know, basically a sovereign citizen was having an interaction with a police officer. Mm-hmm. And the sovereign citizen was essentially saying that, you know what, you don't have the right to XYZ. And actually, they were actually...
Keep going.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I'm just putting this more on you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Go ahead.
And actually, they were... let me start from the beginning.
It's okay.
So there's a interesting case that I did for Lawyer's Reaction where a sovereign citizen was interacting with a police officer and saying that, oh, I'm a sovereign citizen, I'm not subject to XYZ. And they were actually correct in what they were saying. It is actually true because they were recognized and they were allowed to have certain exemptions, but it's an exemption based on a belief. In the United States of America, if you have a belief, you could actually be protected in our country much more than you'll be protected in a lot of other countries.
What was the belief the sovereign citizen had?
You know, I don't exactly remember the specifics of the case, but it had to do with some sort of identification, right? And if you're a sovereign citizen, you're not going to have like a driver's license or a state ID, because again, that is being subject to those laws. And courts have looked at this and said, you know what? As long as we are able to identify you in other ways, then yes, you can in fact potentially be exempt from having to have an ID. And so that was the discussion that they were having with the officer. And again, that is actually true, but it's a protection that comes from the government. So the same government that you're saying that I do not abide by is the same government that's affording you that protection to have the freedom to be able to do that.
So then question. Mm-hmm. They don't have to have a driver's license.
And so, yes.
But do they still have to have one to drive?
It's interesting because, okay, that's a great question. It's a very, very good question. Because
that's what I always see on the, I don't have to have an ID to drive. It's like, yes, but you do.
That's such a great question. You know, it's such a great question. And also, it also brings the question of, do they have to have a license plate as well? You know,
interesting.
It's so interesting because there is a big case on a big video that went super viral about it. But I don't know enough about that area of law to be able to definitively say, like, no, you do not need a driver's license, or no, you don't need a license plate. But I do know that courts have afforded them protections if they're able to make reasonable accommodations. So if they're able to say, okay, fine, you don't need this, but you still need to take a driver's test, right? Yes. You still need to be certified that you can drive, and you may not be given a driver's license, but you might be given some sort of certificate that you've passed this test, and therefore you can drive. You see what I'm saying? So the state can regulate who is qualified to be on their road.
Right.
Right. But they could still at the same time can respect that, oh, you are part of a organization, religion, cult, whatever.
That won't have the card. You don't need the card.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But you need to abide by the same rules that others did to get the card.
Right. It's like kind of like the idea with like Amish people and taxes. Like they don't pay the same kind of taxes, but they don't get the same kind of things back.
Exactly.
It's like a give and take kind of thing. And it's like, we respect that you don't want this help from the government.
Yes.
We're not giving you the help, but therefore you don't have to pay the same kind of taxes.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Brilliant. Isn't it fascinating?
That's so interesting.
This is why I love the law. I'm a nerd. I'm a geek for this exact reason. I find it fascinating, and this is where I live. This is my happy place.
Well, it also made me think of another lawyer story that someone sent of driver's license, and you probably saw this on TikTok.
Well,
it was so funny. It was this video. It was this online trial for this man who had his license revoked, and he was supposed to be coming back and to trial with the judge and with his attorneys all on Zoom to get his license back. And as soon as he had his camera off, and the judge is like, hey, can you turn on the camera? And he turns it on, and he's driving.
Oh my God.
He's like,
no.
And the judge goes,
way.
are you driving right now? And he goes,
no
yeah,
way.
I'm on the way to my appointment right now. He goes, but you're like actively driving. And he's like, yeah, I'm almost there though. Don't worry. And he
Don't worry about it, Judge. I'm
your
almost there.
license actively suspended. And he's like, oh, I'll pull over. And he goes,
I'll pull over?
no, I think this trial's done. I'm finding you guilty. Your license is now being completely revoked, and I'm writing a warrant for your arrest.
Oh,
he's like,
my God.
I think it was my friend Nathan and I were talking about this last night. I think that's what he said.
Yes.
And he literally goes, oh. Like the guy like audibly is rolling his eyes.
You've
and
got to be
sighing.
kidding.
He's like, what do you mean, man?
Oh
like,
my gosh, that's crazy.
What?
So do you think he didn't know? Do you think he genuinely did not know what he was doing? Like, do you think genuinely, or do you think that he just thought, oh, no big deal, like, my license is suspended, but whatever, it's fine. Like, what could possibly have been going through his mind?
It's possible that my opinion is very, like, influenced by my time as a teacher, because let me tell you, these kids will throw something across the room, and you'll say, hey, don't throw that. I didn't throw anything.
Oh my gosh.
Like, these kids will literally, like, you'll tell a student, hey, don't do this action. Right. And if you do, this will be your consequence. And they'll roll their eyes, they'll do it. And then when you give them the consequence, it's like, what do you mean?
Oh, no.
I didn't do anything. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Like, you're just mean. You're just bullying me. So, when I see that video and I see the rolling the eyes and the slumping down, like, it literally is like PTSD.
That's
like,
so sorry.
I literally, like, see it as those kids.
You're right, though.
So, like, maybe I'm a little biased, but that's what I see.
I agree with you completely, like 100%. And I don't know if people just, I mean, there are this is not this case in particular, but there are certain circumstances where you could be violating the law and not realizing what you're doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
this was not one of those times. But yes,
exactly.
Yes, go ahead.
Exactly. Like, for example, you forget to pay you send a check in the mail for your car insurance. It gets lost in the mail, or even if you forget to pay, it escapes your mind.
Yes.
And you're driving without insurance.
Exactly. That's illegal. The example.
However, and you don't know. But as you know, ignorance of the law is not an offense.
And something you reminded me of that I think a lot of people don't understand, and I actually thinking about it, I have my own little personal story to have in there.
Tell me
you're certified in California.
That's
like
correct.
when lawyers graduate law school, they take the bar exam for their particular state.
That's
I know Avery took the UBE or UBD, I don't know, but it encompasses a few states, but not all. It doesn't encompass all 50 because state laws are so different across the board.
Right.
And so I won't name names. People can connect the dots if they want to, but I was working with this company.
Okay.
And I wanted out of my contract so bad because they did me dirty.
Oh, no.
And
Girl, you should have called me.
I didn't know you at the time. This was years ago. This was years ago.
Yes.
Remember when I was talking about how I've met interesting people along the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I didn't want to be associated with these people anymore. I said, this is not for me.
Right.
And I tried to get out of the contract. And of course, like when you try to get out of a contract with a company that really wants you, that's when the threats start coming. And that's when you know either the threats or the praise. And that's how you know their intention.
Right.
And I'll never forget in one email they sent me, they said, technically lawyers are only supposed to practice in their own states. And there was one Zoom call when we were looking at contracts, and your husband Avery was defining legal terms for people because they didn't understand them. And I bet that could be spun into him giving legal advice across state lines. And that would just be so unfortunate if that was reported to the ABA.
No.
And that would be so unfortunate if his license was pulled because of that.
No.
So,
not the threats. You're kidding. No.
And I was like, try me.
Oh my God.
Try. Like, I'm someone that, like, I'm a doormat human being, whatever. You threaten my people.
That's it. Gloves are off. Gloves are off.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
That's insane. And by the way, they're wrong. By the way.
Oh, I know.
They're wrong.
I know.
They're absolutely wrong because
literally,
I as an attorney can even write letters. I could do anything for my mom in another state because we are family. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If I was accepting money for trying to practice in another state, that's completely different, right?
It was crazy.
That's
I was
insane.
so angry. I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, I said,
oh my
you
gosh.
try to take that anywhere, try it.
Oh my God.
I was so mad. That was the day, that was the last day I was like, I'm no longer associated. No.
That's it, I'm done
That
with
was
you.
the nail in the coffin of like any conversation, no.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about reputation, right? Anyone who's willing to do something like that is no one that you ever want to be associated
Absolutely. Absolutely. Literally grinds my
That's
There,
insane.
literally, I want to do so many more of these because, like, I know that it's during VidCon. We both have places that we can be. Like,
I love being here with you. I am so grateful. Like, you are absolutely amazing. Your energy is incredible.
Thank you.
And I adore you. And you're so like.
We're gonna do this again. We need to find a paralegal and do like a double.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love. Okay,
Oh my
when
gosh,
I
you're
come
the
back.
best. You are the best.
I love you
Thank you so much.
Thank
Sincerely.
you.
Oh my God.
Seriously, I hope you guys love Hugo as much as I love Hugo.
Thank you for having
I'm
me.
obsessed with this man.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you guys.
What an honor. Thank you for
love it.
having
Thank
me.
you for
Honestly,
coming.
thank you so much. And I love seeing you. Like
love
every time
seeing you.
I feel like you're in California. Like I feel like I thought you lived in
I've heard that 4 times in the last 3 days. 4 times in the last 3 days, people, I was like, oh, I flew in Saturday. They're like, what do you mean flew in? You don't live here? And I'm like, no. But when I come back, because obviously I will, because I live here, because I want, like, there's so many things that we could answer, like, especially as the TikTok ban things get closer.
Oh my gosh,
You
yes.
and V need to sit down and that would be fun.
Yes,
so,
yes,
like,
you're
maybe we'll have people, like, submit questions, like, in the comments.
Yes.
I want to know what
Please
people
do.
want to know about law and legal things and things going on.
Yes.
Like, whether it be about the former president or TikTok things.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yeah, that would be so much fun.
Yes. You're absolutely right. I cannot wait.
Let us know down in the comments. When we come back, we'll get all that situated. And thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.